Start.
Greetings those who are watching this video. Today we are going to discuss about the topic Stopping by Oats on a Snowy Evening, written by Robert Frost. So first we look the author introduction. So the author is Robert Lee Frost, as you can see in the picture also. So he is the famous American poet. So before going to the deep author introduction way, we have to understand who is as a person, how he is, and what about the area that he was concentrating in a part of literature. So if America of 20th century had a national poet, it would be Robert Frost, says Carlton. So Carlton, as a poet, as an author, he always appreciated Robert Frost in such a way that he has contributed so much to the literature when it comes to romantic era. Okay. So as you know, he's an American poet and he talk about rural life in his poetry, and he grew up in a middle class family, and that is how he started writing poetry, concentrating on simple things and appreciating the beauty of nature. Especially he wrote in a very simple language. So obviously, as you know, all the authors from romantic era use the simplest language, and that is how they give the moral message to the audience. So Robert Frost, when it comes to Robert Frost, he is a man of word. He is such a philosopher who still the world remembers him in such a way. There are a lot of videos that has also created by this poem, Stopping by Oats on a Snowy Evening. He is such a famous person, as well as he is a man of words. When I say man of words, I mean to say whenever he writes a poetry, he always thinks about the public. He don't write for himself but for the public also. He always concentrate on the simplest language as well as the language flow. When you talk about romantic era, where how people come and how they have started writing poetry and how they don't appreciate the classic ideas, that is how Robert Frost has came after the World War I and II, and that's how he started writing a poetry in the most simplest way. And of course he has won the Pulitzer Prizes for poetry, and his poems talk about things like nature, who we are, and what life means. So we have to focus on the last point, that is Robert Frost has always concentrated on nature, and he always questions in the poem that who we are and what life means to us. We'll see in the poem, especially in the last stanza, we are going to see in this elaborative manner. Okay, historical background. So what is historical background? Historical background is something you have to understand the history, what happened before this poem has been revealed to the audience, this poem have been published to the audience. So history, so today we are going to see the history also, that is very, very important. So this poem has written after the World War I, during the time of changes. So whatever happened during the World War I, how people lost hope in their life, and that is how the authors came like Wordsworth, Robert Frost, and John Keats, and many others. And that is how they started writing poetry for the people, not for themselves but also for the people. Next, the 1920s saw rapid societal changes and technological progress. Obviously, after the 1920s, how society has changed in the way of technology also. And despite progress, people grapple with uncertainty about life's meaning. So obviously, when you lose something in your life, let's say you are losing your family members, you're losing your relationships, and after that, what happens to a normal human being? He will lose the hope in life. Obviously, the people who came after World War I and II, literally they started questioning religion, moral values, ethics. So now here in this poem also we are going to see the essence of it, and how Frost has elaborated this in a very beautiful manner with a lot of emotions, and the scenery, especially when you talk about the background image of the poem, that is very, very important, as well as the most appreciable thing in the whole literature. Okay, next. The poem introduction. So first we'll see the introduction to the poem. So this whole slide will just tell you to imagine things that are what I'm gonna tell you. So imagine you're just walking on a snowy evening where you see a lot of mountains surrounded to you, and you're gonna walk into that, and there is nobody in the mountain, just you, and let's say your horse and you and your horse, and you're just walking slowly into the mountain. and there is no person is up to you, is next to you, and all of a sudden you're gonna stop in the place and you're going to admire the snowfall, how snow is slowly falling down to the mountains and how this air is touching your skin. That is what the imagination that Frost has given to the audience. So it's like taking a moment to pause and appreciate the peacefulness of nature. We'll explore how the poem makes us to feel and what it makes us to think about. Okay, so now let's dive into the chapter. So basically this poem is the imaginatory power that is going to teach you how to imagine things in such a way that will make you feel something, that will make you feel better. Yes, so this poem plays a very important role in the process of imagination as well as understanding the romantic literature, romantic era. Okay. So stanza 1, moving on to the poetic lines. Stanza 1, I'll just read out. Whose oos these are, I think I know. His house is in the village, though he will not see me stopping here to watch his oats fill up with snow. So the word woods literally means the forest. Okay, so forest. So here the speaker himself is a speaker. There is no other speaker in the poem. The speaker is Robert Frost and he is coming with his horse. In the first stanza you can see whose oats these are, I think I know. So he's not just talking to the audience, he's talking to himself, and that is how beautifully he has written the poem with the imagination obviously as well as with the experience. So the first line itself is a question. Whose oats these are, I think I know. He's asking question to himself, I think I know this forest. And then second line, his house is in the village though, and he also says his house is somewhere located in the village. And the next line, he will not see me stopping here to watch his oats fill up with snow. Again he says to himself that the owner of the village or anybody who is in the village, he may not stop him to watch this forest that is filled with beautiful snow. So just he's going with his horse and he's speaking to himself that whatever the things that he is going to experience, that is what the first stanza will tell you, that he's just admiring the snow, the oats, and he's talking to himself and he's addressing the owner of some village, and he thinks that he may know the owner of this village, and he also says that he may not stop me to see this beautiful evening that is filled with snow. Okay. So the stanzas 2, that is, my little horse must think it queer to stop without a farmhouse near, between the oats and the frozen lake, the darkest evening of the year. So just as a literature student or as a normal student, so you should concentrate on the poetic lines and as well as the background image of this poem. So now the next is the horse. So he is mentioning my little horse must think it queer. So he has his horse with him and the horse is little. So it means he owns his horse. He has his own horse, and he also says he must think it queer. Queer means something, you know, when you feel something very strange or something very unusual happening. So he also thinks about his horse and says his horse is thinking there is something which is strange, there is something which is wrong, because to stop without a farmhouse near, because the author has stopped himself somewhere, there is no farmhouse, there is nothing, the place is so empty, it's just the mountain and the snow. There is no such thing, but still the author has stopped himself, Robert Frost has stopped himself with his horse. Between the oats and the frozen lake. So again the beautiful image comes here. We have to concentrate on the third line, between the oats and the frozen lake. It means between the oats, between the forest, and there is a frozen lake. Yeah, between the oats, between the forest and the frozen lake, he has stopped himself with his horse. And the next line also says the darkest evening of the year. Again the beautiful imagery that is coming here. The darkest evening of the year. It also says that this evening is, this depicts that it's a winter season, because obviously when you talk about winter season, you have this evening that is filled with darkness, not some lightness, or say like, obviously even when you talk about the western countries like America, obviously Frost is an American poet, so he lives in America, and that's how he is depicting the whole evening. In this verse, He's saying the darkest evening of the year. It also means the evening is very dark and he could not see things so clearly. It also depicts the evening is beautiful, at the same time it is very dark. He gives his Hans bells a shake to ask if there is some mistake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. Again, I could not stop appreciating the beauty of these lines. The first line, he gives his Hans bell a shake. So obviously when you own a dog or a horse, you're gonna have your kind of thing in his neck that it will show that you are the owner of that horse or a dog, or let's say even cat. So it shows he gives his Hans bell a shake. It means the horse has its own belt on his neck that is tied in his neck, and through that he is shaking his neck, and that is how the Hans bell is ringing in the third stanza. Why? Because the horse is so confused, because the author has stopped somewhere without no reason, without telling anything. He stopped himself with his horse, and that is how the horse is so confused. With a lot of confusion, he is shaking his head, and by that he could hear the bell sound. The next line, to ask if there is some mistake. So the horse is trying to ask, is there any mistake that has happened, and why as an owner, why he has stopped me here all of a sudden, where there is no farmhouse, there is no people around the place, and obviously the evening is so dark, with a lot of filled with beautiful snowflake. The only other sounds the sweep of easy wind and downy flake. As you can see, they're talking about some sound. It means there's this fresh air that is coming across the poet, that is easy wind, and downy flake means the snow is slowly falling and the wind is touching the poet's skin. That is the beauty of this line, is to imagine yourself being in a mountain where you are going to see a lot of snow that is falling into you, and the soft air is touching your skin. That is how the poet's idea to appreciate the beauty of that particular evening in the verse, that he is saying about the sound and about the wind, that is so easy wind. When he is saying easy wind, it means the wind is very soft, gentle, and that is how that wind is coming and touching the poet's skin. And downy flake obviously is talking about the snowfall, how the snow is slowly falling down and how this air is coming and touching the poet's skin. That is the stanza 3 will tell you the idea of horse, how he is confused, and how this sound is coming. What is the word sound is also important here. The sound in the sense when this fresh air is coming. I hope you have experienced the sound, obviously when the winter season comes, especially when you talk about the evening. There is a lot of sound of air. For example, the fresh air is starting, let's say even before raining, you will feel the essence of the fresh air. It will touch your skin and it will make you feel so good. That is something which is very appreciable in the era of romantic era, when the poets just admire the beauty of nature, and that's how they have written in the poetic verse. So that is very, very important to appreciate and to imagine yourself being in the poet's situation. Okay, so the word lovely, as I have already mentioned, it will tell you about the beauty of the forest, and then we have the another phrase that is dark and deep. It will tell you about the evening, which is very, very dark. For example, let's imagine that you are walking in a forest and it's so dark as well as very deep. So the word deep is also important, because let's say you are in a forest and you lost your way where you have to go and move forward. So the word dark and deep tell you that the evening is very dark as well as it is very deep. There is no particular way that will show you where you have to land, like where you have to stop yourself. So the essence of this line is very important when it comes to admiring the nature. The woods are lovely, dark and deep. At one side the forest is so lovely, and the other side that is so dark and it's very deep. Because the deep, in a sense, you cannot stop yourself moving or coming, going back to your place. So there's this beauty of this force, that is making the author to stop himself in the oats. And the next line, but I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. But I have promises to keep. So poet is talking about the promises that he has kept already in his life. The word promises, it means the responsibilities, like when you're going for a trip, let's say you're going to a Kerala trip or an Ooty trip, we're going to enjoy all the things with your friends and hanging with your friends, and lastly you have to leave the place and you have to come back to the responsibility. As if you are a student, you have to come back to the student phase. As if you are a professor, you have to come back to your duty as a professor. That is how this line will tell you, but I have promises to keep and miles to go before I sleep, and miles to go before I sleep. So the woods are very lovely, dark, very deep. It's very good, but overall, lastly, what the person has to do, he has a lot of promises, he has a lot of responsibilities in his life, and that is how he has to keep his promises and leave the place before going to the sleep, and miles to go before the sleep. So the word miles, again the word miles is very important, because miles will tell you that there's a long way before you sleep. You have to finish the way, you have to complete all your tasks before you sleep. And the line is repeating again in the last. The poet has intentionally repeated the two lines in a two-way. Okay, and miles to go before I sleep. The one interpretation of first line is before sleeping he has to fulfill all the responsibilities, and the last line, and miles to go before I sleep. So before the death of the poet, he has to fulfill all the responsibilities, and then he has to go to the sleep. So that is how the fourth stanza ends. And the moral message of this poem is to tell you, even though whatever things that you are enjoying in your life, you have to leave that thing one day, and you have to go back to your responsibility, because you are the responsible person. That is how this stanza ends. Okay, next. So we have to concentrate on the themes in the poem. That is, first is nature's beauty, that how the snow and woods has been the beautiful image of the whole poem. The word snow and the word woods are very important, because that is the two things that will give you the beautiful background to the poem, that is nature's beauty. And the being alone and thinking. So obviously, as you know, the poet was alone with his horse, and he was thinking a lot of things in his mind, and that is how he has written this poem also. And what you want versus what you have to do. The person in the poem wants to stay in the woods, but they know they have to go back to the responsibilities. As we have already discussed in the last stanza, even though that thing was giving a lot of pleasure to the poet, the woods and the snow, it was giving a lot of pleasure, happiness to the person, but still the Robert Frost has to leave all these things and he has to go back to his responsibilities. And then life is short. The poem makes us think about life does not last forever. That is something very deepest line that he is going to talk about in the poem. The poem makes us think about how life does not last forever. Okay, so the people who believe in this life, obviously they're going to say, okay, this life is very short and that is not going to last forever, because you have to fulfill all your responsibilities and you have to live your pleasures. But the another side of the life is the life after death. That is what the idea of this poem. Okay, next. Lastly, we'll conclude the poem with some ideas, that is appreciating nature, reflection in solitude, balancing responsibilities, life's fleeting nature. So as a person, the poem will tell you how to appreciate the beauty that is surrounded by us, not just hanging with the gadgets, but also look at the beauty, look at the nature, and have to be blessed and thankful to the nature. The next is reflection and solitude. It will tell you how you can think deeply when you are alone and you can understand yourself and the world. And then we have balancing responsibilities, which is very much connected to the last stanza, that is miles to go before I sleep, that you have to fulfill all your responsibilities before you go to the sleep. Lastly, we have life's fleeting nature. That is, the poem prompts us to reflect on the shortness of life and the importance of making the most of our time. Okay, this poem, the last line will tell you how life short is and how you should not miss your responsibilities and how you have to fulfill it before it takes a lot of time. Before you die, you have to, make yourself proud and make your family proud, and you have to fulfill all your responsibilities. That is how you have to go to sleep or death. Next we have the another poem, that is The World is Too Much with Us by William Wordsworth. Okay, next. So first, as you know, we are going to talk about the author first. So William Wordsworth, a renowned English poet born in 1770, and he was a person who helped to start the Romantic poetry movement, which is again very, very important. Romantic poetry movement, he and St. Coleridge and William Wordsworth have started this idea of romanticism after the World War happened, and he is a person who raised in a lake district in England. So all the poets who talk about romantic ideas in the poetry, they belong to the rural side, the village side, same like Robert Frost, same like Coleridge, same like Wordsworth also. So he is a person who lives in a lake district, and he has faced personal struggles like losing his parents early. He is a person who just not, he has not just lose his parents, as well as there are a lot of things that has happened in his life, having a wrong relationship and not being happy in the relationships. Okay, regarded as one of the greatest English poets, not just the greatest English poets, but the pioneer of romantic poet. Okay, his poetry continues to inspire with us of nature and emotion. Okay, so the idea of Wordsworth poetry is to inspire you to admire the nature and to support individualism. What is individualism? It means accepting all the others people's ideas, opinions, and valuing that. That is how World War I and II has affected, and how people have started accepting their own ideas and belief, because they don't want to have this judgmental kind of society, because already they have lost many things in their life, like losing their parents, their house, and the society, and so on. Okay, background. This was a time of big changes when machines started doing a lot of work and cities grew fast. Okay, again we have to look at the background and how machines have started doing a lot of work and how cities have started. It means to say, after the World War things, a lot of development has been started in England, in America, and a lot of places. And that is how people started developing a lot of things which is related to machinery, like not just machines, but a lot of things that has happened, and that is how people started concentrating more on gadgets rather than appreciating the beauty of nature. Nature was being hurt by factories and cities spreading. Okay, how the pollution, how the gadgets and all those stuff has affected the nature because of the development, because of the human, how the human have developed the machines. Because of that reason, how nature has affected badly, not just the nature, also the people. Wordsworth was a part of a group of poets who loved nature and feelings more than big cities and machines. Okay, so the Wordsworth is one of those who always admire the city, not the city life, but the village life, the rural life, and appreciate the simplicity and the beauty, not the cities. He wrote these poems to say we are losing touch with nature and should care more about it. So this poem is a kind of advice, as you can say, the kind of motivational poem to the readers, where it will tell you that you are losing your nature, you are not admiring your nature, you are just moving far away from it, and this is a kind of advice to the readers. We'll see how it is. Okay, next. Okay, we'll not go line by line, we'll just concentrate the important points in it. The first is feeling disconnected. It will tell you how people are feeling disconnected with nature because of the gadgets that they are having in their hands. The next is blaming industrialization. Industrialization has made people too busy and distracted. Obviously, when you as a human, when you get a bike or get a car, how you gonna distract yourself with the new gadget, and how you're not going to concentrate on nature, because you're going to stay too busy in that. The third point is lack of appreciation, that people don't appreciate nature's beauty anymore. Okay, so thanks to the nature poets that has always mentioned this point in the poetry, and still now, as we are the postmodern era, the people from postmodern, still now people read Frost poetry, people read Wordsworth poetry, and still as a readers, as a literature students, we are appreciating the beauty in such a way. Okay, lack of appreciation, people don't appreciate nature's beauty anymore. Obviously there are people who don't appreciate the beauty anymore, and still now there are people too focused on materialism. The word materialism is very, very important in this poem. The word materialism will tell you how you are so focused with the wealth, with earning a lot of money, and not appreciating the simplicity that is surrounded by you. Next is longing for simplicity. Okay, the speaker's wishes for a simpler, more natural way of life. So here Wordsworth is a person who always loved nature and he craved for nature. Okay, he was not a normal person when it comes to nature. He thinks nature as a god, he admired nature, he appreciates nature, and that is how he has written so many things on nature as an advice, as a motivation, as an appreciation. Okay. Critique of society, the poem criticizes society's obsession with material possession. So this poem is also a kind of criticism where a poet will criticize the society based on the natural material possessions, how the people are so obsessed with wealth, which is not going to last forever. But the nature is something which is going to last forever. And the next is desire for connection. There's a yearning to reconnect with the natural world. The poet will tell you how you're going to reconnect with the nature, how you have lost yourself and how you have to come back and reconnect with the nature. Estranged from nature, human feels separated from beauty and rhythms of nature. How the humans are separated from the beauty and the rhythms of nature, in the sense how the nature is giving you a lot of peace to yourself. Okay. Next we have overwhelmed by worldly concerns. The title suggests that worldly worries distract us from nature. There's something very, very true. Whenever you are going to worry about your future, the things that is related to the wealth or prosperity, the success, the thing of achieving things, that will automatically distract you from admiring nature. So also this poem, lastly, it will end with the balancing between nature and your responsibilities. We'll see how. Next we have call of action. The poem encourages readers to re-evaluate their priorities and appreciate the beauty of nature. Okay, so this poem will tell the readers to reconnect their priorities and appreciate the beauty of nature. It means you have to come back to the reality that where you have born, and like you have to come back to the nature. That is how it is going to help you. So the last is very important, call of action. Call of action in the sense the poet is not just making you to believe in it, he's just not motivating, but is also calling you to the action, calling you to do something with the nature. The poem highlights the speaker's desire to return to the more primal connection with nature. As Wordsworth suggests that humans have become estranged from the rhythms, the beauty of the world. So the overall idea of this slide will also tell you that you have to come back and you have to make a strong connection with the nature. You have to have the desire in your heart, and you have to come back to the natural world. Natural world in the sense you have to leave all the gadgets, all the development that has happened in that era. Today we have a lot of developments, like obviously mobile is the biggest distraction for the younger generation, and this poem will tell you how you have to distract with the idea of phones and gadgets, and you have to come back to the reality that is nature, that how nature will bring you peace and how the gadgets are destroying the peace of the younger generation. Lastly, the world is too much with us serves a poignant reminder to the importance of maintaining a deep and meaningful connection with nature, that is the distraction of modern life. Okay, so how you have to maintain a deep and meaningful connection with the nature, as well as how you have to distract yourself from the modern life. Okay, so next we have this poem, that is Where the Mind is Without Fear by Rabindranath Tagore. Okay, next. So firstly, the author introduction. He is a Bengali poet, writer and artist, born in Kolkata, a very famous poet and artist, won Nobel Prize. He is specialized university. Okay, he likes writing, music and painting. His ideas about love, life still inspires people today. So when it comes to Rabindranath Tagore, Tagore as a person, he is a Bengali poet. The people who born on Bengal, the people who speak Bengali, the people who lived in Bengali, are the people who are very good when it comes to literature part. There are many artists, there are many poets, there are many writers who born and brought up in Bengal, and they have won Nobel Prizes in India. So in a way that Bengal is making the Indians people so proud because of the literature. Okay, historical background. The first is British rule. How the British people have ruled India, that is the background of this poem. And how they have restricted, they have limitations for everything when it comes to freedom of expression and oppression. Next we have nationalist movement. Indians were fighting for independence from British rule, that is led by Mahatma Gandhi. Okay, and next we have cultural revival. Tagore was a part of movement to revive Indian culture and literature known as the Bengali Renaissance. Okay, the overall idea of the background is to understand what happened between India and British and how British ruled India, and how the freedom fighters made India relieve from that. Okay, the poem explanation, Dream of Freedom. The poem talks about wanting to live in a place where everyone can feel free and safe. Though this poem will concentrate on the freedom of individual person, how a person wants a free space, a free time to himself, not to distracted by the society. The ideal society, describe the ideal society where people can express themselves without having any sort of fear or hesitation. And then we have finding inner peace. The poet believes that finding inner peace and understanding can help us overcome fear. So finding what is the inner peace and how you're going to find and how you're going to understand, and that is how it is going to bring you the peace in you, and it is going to help you to come over your fears. Then we have seeking enlightenment, that is there's a wish for knowledge, enlightenment to guide society towards freedom. Enlightenment in the sense seeking of knowledge. Through knowledge you're going to enlighten yourself and the society, and that's how you're going to get the freedom. That is what the main idea of the poem. Thinking rationally, the poem encourages thinking for ourselves, not blindly believing in things. Okay, the fifth point is very, very important, where the poet will talk about you should not believe in things blindly, but you have to analyze it, you have to understand, ask questions, then you're going to believe whatever you're going to hear or see. Taking it action. Okay, it urged people to work together to create a society based on truth and freedom. This poem is a motivational poem again, which will tell the society to work together, that is based on truth and freedom. Based on truthfulness and freedom, they have to work together to make a better society. Okay, next we have being open-minded, that you have to be a very open-minded person who appreciate new ideas and accepting others' ideas. Next we have unity and equality. You have to be equal for everyone. You should not separate yourself with caste, gender, or let's say religion. Hope for a better future. Despite challenges, there's a hope for a future where everyone can thrive and contribute. Though a lot of challenge happens in your life, you have to come forward, and you have to stick to contribute yourself to the society. You have to think good about the society. You have to help the people who are struggling in the society. That is how you're going to make a better future. Then we have timeless message. That is the last message of the poem. It will tell you to unite it and have freedom within yourself and the society. And enlightenment is still important today, inspiring us to work towards a better world. So enlightenment in the sense seeking knowledge through books, through lectures or whatever, and that is how it is going to help you and to inspire you and to work together for a better world, to work together as a society for the better world. Okay, that is how we are going to end this 3 poems. Thank you.